All right. Um, it is 3:34 Eastern Time. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining another edition of the CS Office Hours Accounting and Financing. Um, I'm Marie Darling. I do community and learning. You've probably seen me on the community page, YouTube, of course. But I want to introduce you guys to our hosts. We have Zach Baumann. Everyone knows who Zach is. He's was a CS coach and now is a product owner on the engineering side. And we have Melissa Leediker here. I'm so excited for her to join us. You might be the first person we've had, you know, not as a CS person. So
Oh
I'll
yeah,
let her
that's
introduce
nice.
herself.
Hey
Oh,
y'all,
that's it. Okay,
thanks for
Melissa.
taking your time out to join us today. My name's Melissa Leediker. I own Turquant Builder Services, primarily providing controller level financial management solutions for custom home builders. Touches on remodeling specs, all of that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. Go ahead, Zach. Introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Zach Bauman. Many of you know me from our other webinars as former customer success coach slash customer success manager, now newly minted product owner, working on the
Woo!
Ressio side of things.
So he's still here. You guys will see him more
Still
and more.
here.
Yeah, still in the community forum, which I love having you in there. Um, so what we'll be going over today? This is like another 101 basic best practices of accounting and financing using in Ressio. So this is like a little rough of like we're going to go over estimates and cost codes. We'll do budget page overview, QuickBooks Online, um, the push and pull, reporting in Ressio, reporting QBO, and tips and best practices. You do not have to have QuickBooks Online for this session to be helpful. So just keep that in mind. And of course, we'll have our question and answer towards the end. So if something pops up and you do have a question, please add it into the question and answer and we'll try and get to it. But know that there will be a dedicated time. And then as always, we really appreciate if you fill out the survey at the end so we know if this is helpful and want to get your feedback for future ones. So I'm going to go ahead and let's get started.
Fantastic. Well, I'll take the lead here on the Ressio side for now, but Melissa, interrupt me as soon as I say something silly regarding the actual accounting side of this.
You got
Um,
it.
Obviously these are things that we've talked about before, but really kind of bringing these into the accounting and finance side of Ressio. So the estimate is the financial heart and soul of Ressio, and therefore is the place where we always start. The estimate is what informs the budget. It's where we track changes and revisions. It's where we generate purchase orders and things like that. All of our amazing kind of financial tools. But equally as important in providing really good, accurate information is also cost codes. And so this is kind of a good area to keep consistent within Ressio. Like your estimates may vary from project to project. The templates that you use might be very different for a custom home versus a remodel versus a small deck project that you're doing for a friend but still want to run through Ressio. But the thing that should really maintain consistency throughout your business is going to be your cost codes. And in Ressio, we use the term cost codes as kind of a universal tool, term for like our financial tracking. It's how we organize our budgets on projects. It's how we invoice on cost plus projects and how we keep things organized even on fixed price projects. In QuickBooks, that term it's called products and services. And so that's something to just kind of make sure when you're building your financial kind of backbone of your projects or of your business, ensure that you one use codes consistently, that you're maintaining kind of a standard whatever your cost code formula is. If you use the NAHB standard codes, if you use the NARI codes, the Canadian codes, or a code set that you've made up just because your friend Steve told you it's a really good code set that he used, like those are all very valid. It's maintaining that consistency so that your reporting goes beyond the one project that you're working on. If you know that from one project to the next, your excavation code is the same, you'll be able to track that kind of usage over time across multiple projects and not just have codes that are unique to just that one project that you can only report from that one project. But make sure that you're connecting those to your products and service codes if you use them in QuickBooks. That is the kind of like financial highway of communicating things between Ressio and between QuickBooks is cost codes and products and services, and they map one to one. So we're mapping specifically to the products and services. We're not mapping to the categories. You're more than welcome to use those categories within QuickBooks. We're looking at ways in the future to kind of surface those on your budget for grouping, but it's going to be a one-to-one connection, cost code to products and service code. And I love the call out here that Marie put. So when we're building an estimate in a Ressio, it is truly an estimate. It's a kind of living document up into the point where we lock it. And that is when we are approved. And when you might lock a project is going to be different builder to builder. But what we're really getting at here is that your moment of locking is when when you're saying, I want to set my original contract price, so that any changes that are made to this number, positive or negative, or are made to this scope of work are considered revisions. So when you're going into your budget page for the first time and you're building an estimate and you're looking at the budget table and you're like, hey, why is nothing populating in my original budget column here? That's likely because you have not locked your estimate. That gets set when you lock the estimate, and then you're revised, you're approved, you're committed. Those are going to track from everything you're doing during that time. Don't feel afraid to start creating like purchase orders and things like that before that lock moment, because that tracks separately as a committed cost. So just laying some really good foundations here is solid estimates, consistent cost codes, connecting those to products and services if you're going to be using QuickBooks. If you're not, you can still get really, really great financial reporting out of just using the cost codes that you want in Ressio. And then locked is what sets your original budget. And that's really where the budget then comes into play and is very, very beneficial. I think we can pop to the next slide here, Marie. So when we're talking about the budget overview page here, we've got a lot of information on this page. One thing I always like to note first and foremost is that this page and the estimate page, those grids, those data tables are customizable. You can remove the columns that you're not utilizing. You can reorder those columns into a view that better fits kind of your view of things. You'll have to keep them within the categories, so you can't have like your original budget all the way at the end if it's part of the different category. Those are color coded on the budget page, but it's the ability to kind of reorganize that and get a view for yourself. And then don't forget, there is always that budget summary. There's that view summary button. Marie in the screenshot here has that open up. That's going to give you kind of a high level overview. So the data table you're seeing there is a really great granular view, and it goes cost code by cost code, and it goes column by column for different data sets. But that is very granular. It subtotals at the bottom, which is really nice. But the budget summary is a really great way to just see like a quick snapshot of here, what's my original price, what are my approved changes, what are my pending changes, how much have I collected, where am I projected to be. And as you can see here, there's a lot of great detail available there with cost and markups and things like that. The budget table, if you're doing cost plus projects, is also a really great way to communicate your finances with your customer. I often encourage builders to share on cost plus projects a view of the budget page. One of the things that you'll see, and when I take over live share in a moment in my account, there is the ability to set and save a custom customer view. And so you can essentially say, I only want my customers to see these certain columns of the budget table if I choose to share the budget table with them. And it's nice because you can simplify what they're seeing, still give them access to that great information so that they know what was my original budget versus my revised, how much have we spent so far, how much have I been invoiced on so far, but they're maybe not seeing the less important stuff to them, like work completion, completion status, all actuals, committed call. Like that might be information that's just way too overwhelming for them. Couple of terms to kind of break down here. So we've got kind of what I call the five main kind of concepts here that tend to be on the left-hand side and are often repeated in the budget table. And that is original, revised, approved, committed, and then actuals. And there's two designations for actuals there sometimes. Original is just that. It is our original budget that is set when we lock our estimate. That is something that should traditionally be set once and not be adjusting throughout the project, because we don't encourage unlocking and relocking the estimate. That can cause some issues with original versus revised reporting, things like that. Your revised, which is the next step down the line, that's your kind of total approved cost and pending changes. So the thing to remember here is that your revised is going to show pending change orders. and those things, not just the approved ones. So the revised and approved columns may not always mirror each other, but ideally when you get to the end of the project, if those two columns don't subtotal to the same number at the bottom, it's very likely that you have an outstanding change order or selection that has not been approved, and you might want to go back and double check that. Approved, like kind of I alluded to here, is just the approved selections and change orders, plus the original cost, of course, is part of that. And so that is going to be exactly what the customer has approved or you have approved on behalf of the customer. That is really going to be kind of like your live price on the project of, hey, this is our original contract price, plus or minus any changes that we've made, plus or minus any selections that we've done with the customer to give us a really good idea of where does the customer stand at this moment from what they've said okay to, or what we've said okay to on their behalf. And then committed is one that not all of my builders previously have utilized, but I think it's probably one of the most powerful. Committed comes from released and approved purchase orders, and it is specifically purchase orders only. So these are purchase orders that you are generating from the estimate or generating from scratch. This is going to give you that forecasting capability, the ability to say, what am I expecting to spend on these specific cost codes or line items before the money is actually out the door. And so with a lot of my builders, I highly encourage create a purchase order, and it's going to vary builder to builder, and Melissa probably has some insights here as well. Most of my builders, I say anything that you can forecast, go for it. Some builders that I work for say, hey, we're going to create a purchase order for anything over a certain dollar value, or where we're contracting someone else to do the work and we need to do a work order or kind of a commitment to that dollar value. You're probably not going to be doing purchase orders for all the random things you go pick up at Home Depot, but you might do a purchase order for like drywall materials or labor through a subcontractor, or some of the forecastable things like equipment rentals and things like that as well. Yeah. Melissa, any other kind of, with purchase orders in general, do you highly recommend those for builders, or those kind of like a, hey, if you feel like it's valuable, use them? Like, what's your opinion there?
I'm a big fan of purchase orders, but even beyond being able to project out, it's also a really good cost control. So as we get bills in, we match those up to the purchase order. That helps give us a double check on whether or not we're on budget, or if we've gone over budget, maybe there was a change order that we didn't capture. That's a good opportunity to catch those kinds of overruns before you get to the end of the job and wonder why you're over in a cost code.
Yeah, and one of the nice tips or tricks I always teach my builders is when you're generating a purchase order, and I'll show you as we generate a purchase order here, you can actually, on the purchase order itself, either add additional line items or adjust the dollar value, and it doesn't update your estimate or affect your original or revised. So a great instance would be, maybe I'm a cost plus builder who needs to put a little bit of padding in on one of my purchase orders, because I know that even though the subcontractor told me that they'll do excavation for $20,000, I know that they're going to do it for $25,000, or I just want to build that buffer in there. So I might quote the customer at $25,000 for excavation, but I might decrease the purchase order to $20,000 because I know I can do a buyout or save, or I maybe need to increase the committed costs to be over than the budget preemptively. So you can actually edit, and it's just going into the purchase order that's not in an approved state and hitting edit on the line item editor and simply changing the dollar values. And that doesn't affect the original or revised price of the project. It simply just affects the committed cost on the project. So it gives you that extra little bit of like wiggle room in your numbers if you want to build in some buffer or track things in a little bit more detail with your own know-how or your own knowledge. And Melissa alluded to kind of the last group of 5 here is your actuals. So your actuals are your real expenses on the project. Those actuals might come from purchase orders because you can create bills right from your purchase orders and tie them together. They might come from the things that you forecast and don't, like what I like to call standalone bills. Maybe I go to Home Depot and pick up some materials. It's a receipt on the job site expense or things like that. And then finally, it can also be things like your labor. Whether you're tracking your labor through Ressio, through the time clock and setting a billable rate on that labor, or if you're tracking your time in another system, either through QuickBooks Time, we can pull that information back in as well. So either native to Ressio or external system or QuickBooks, those can pull in through QuickBooks. That allows you to get that kind of those expenses for your labor as well. And I am of the opinion that builders should always be billing for their time. I've worked with a lot of builders historically who build that into a flat project management fee, and I think that's great if you're really, really, really good at forecasting your expense, your cost and your labor. But that is not always the situation. And I think it's just very important. Even if you track your time at a zero billable rate, I think it's really still very important to track that. One of the reports that we'll talk about in our reports is actually an estimated versus actuals hours report, that even if you track the hours at a $0 value, you can actually see your estimated versus actuals and your forecasted as well for draft hours. The difference you'll see here between all actuals and applied actuals is all actuals includes draft bills, not just approved bills. So it's kind of like the precursor to your applied actuals. Your all actuals is every bill that you've entered into Ressio that is either draft, ready for approval, or approved. And applied actuals are the ones that you have approved and actually said, I'm going to bill the customer for these. Even if you mark them as do not invoice for, these are the ones that you've kind of approved and said this is the final step. If you're entering your bills and expenses and time into QuickBooks, everything pulls over to the applied actuals column. That doesn't pull over to the all actuals because they don't have draft states when they're pulling over from QuickBooks. So just something to be aware of there. Awesome. The other thing that we're talking about here, percentage completion tracking, that is just a manual entry field. It's called work completion, and you can enter and just, for your team or for yourself, say, hey, about how far into the work are we here? I think we'd love to see some automations there in the future where schedule can be tied back in. There's just not a direct connect between those at this time. So you can come and say, hey, I think we're about 50% done with this work. Are we doing okay? And then tied to that is we also have the completion status column that a lot of builders have questions about. Essentially what completion status is, it allows you to determine where your projected is coming from. So your projected by default is going to be the highest of your revised, committed, or actuals columns for that cost code, essentially saying the highest of these three because we presume that whatever the highest dollar value is, we want to make that the assumption unless told otherwise. But at any time, you can change the completion status from not paid to paid in full. That doesn't mean you're actually done paying it. It's just kind of a toggle. And that will change the projected for that specific cost code to whatever the actuals are, the applied actuals are at that moment. So if you start to trend over budget, your projected versus original is going to be in the red immediately. You don't have to worry about that. If the costs are higher, it's above the budget. If you're trending under budget, you can change the not paid to paid in full, and that will allow you to start seeing those savings if you want to. And it's nice because it gives you that kind of understanding of, hey, we're over here, we're under there. It doesn't prevent any new bills from coming in. It doesn't like lock anything down. It is simply kind of just a toggle that you can switch between. So it's really helpful for, hey, if this was the last bill, if I were to say all of my bills related to rental equipment came in today, would I be, how far below budget would I be? What's my projected versus original at this time? Awesome. And I see we have a question here a little bit about if you're using Adaptive. So Adaptive is a third-party tool that we partner with. Currently, the Adaptive integration kind of works in two fronts here. So one is the from Ressio to Adaptive directly. And as it stands today, that is the ability for approved purchase orders that are created in Ressio to be pushed over to Adaptive. So the purchase orders are still created in Ressio originally. You still have the full job costing capability, full project management capability, but those can then be pushed over to Adaptive so that you have those over there for the Adaptive side of job costing and that tool in general. And then the other side of that is traditionally expense tracking. So like your bills and expenses, that still comes in through the QuickBooks integration. So there's not a direct connection for bills and expenses from Ressio to Adaptive or vice versa. Essentially, you can either enter your bills and expenses into Ressio, sync those to QuickBooks, and those will pull over into Adaptive if you're using that tool, or the other direction. You can enter your bills and expenses into Adaptive, those will then sync into QuickBooks and pull into Ressio. Nathaniel, yeah, we have had that discussion. I think it's just kind of an ongoing, when it comes to two systems kind of communicating with each other, there's competing engineering initiatives. So there is definitely talk about integrating other things like budgets and change orders and more into Adaptive over time. We have a really great relationship with those guys. So definitely give us that feedback. It just adds additional requests for that kind of integration. but it's not just currently at this time. Though you can export the budget out of Ressio. Some builders have asked about this before. On that data table on the budget, simply right-click and you can right-click anywhere and you can export it as an Excel or a CSV file. We have a download button on the estimate because that's more common, but the budget can just be exported with that right-click. And that goes for all the different data tables in Ressio. Anytime you see a data table, if you're like, oh, I don't see a download button, right-click it. Guarantee there's an export to CSV or Excel option right there for you.
That's probably one of the biggest like tips when you're trying to use the data in different places is right clicking, because everybody does look for the download button. I've had to touch on that with a lot of builders.
Yeah, it's a nice little right click function. And it holds whatever filters or that you have in place at that time, just like the other data table. So if you filtered it down, which is actually something that we're adding into the budget data table is filters. So be on the lookout for that upcoming relatively soon. Is the ability to kind of filter down by the columns there, not by the rows at this time, but specifically by the columns, so that you could filter down to show, hey, I just want to see all the cost codes that are marked as paid in full, so that I can see kind of a paid in full report, or by labor, cost type or things like that as well. So be on the lookout for that. Awesome. I think we can move on to the next one. Fantastic. So this is the part of the conversation that gets into if you are using QuickBooks. So if you're not using QuickBooks or you don't have plans to use QuickBooks, you guys can kind of just check out here for just a couple minutes and check back in when we've moved past this. But when it comes to QuickBooks Online, which is the accounting system that we integrate with at this time, there is the push and there is the pull. And that's the easiest way I can describe this is essentially push is what starts in Ressio and ends up in QuickBooks. Pull is what starts in QuickBooks and ends up in Ressio. And so for the push side of things, and sorry, I'm from New Jersey, I talk with my hands a lot. So from the push side of things, we have got bills. So you can enter all of your bills and expenses into Ressio and push those seamlessly over to QuickBooks. We have customer invoices. Those can be entered, fixed price or cost plus. Customer invoices can be entered into Ressio, built in Ressio, either from those applied actuals or from a progress invoice, and can be pushed over to QuickBooks. And then your time as well. So any time that you track and enter into Ressio on approval can also be pushed over to QuickBooks. And those are all optional. You can turn those off if you don't want to push those over on approval. So you could say, I want to push my bills and my invoices over, but I want to keep my time just in Ressio, in the Ressio budget. That information can still be pushed to the budget without being pushed to QuickBooks. This is where Ressio really acts as a standalone system in that we don't require QuickBooks to get all this value. It's just an integration that allows for kind of higher level reporting and accountancy and things like that. On the pull side, we are able to, so if I enter a bill or I enter a customer, an invoice into Ressio and push those over to QuickBooks, if I mark that bill paid, or if I apply a payment to the bill or to the customer invoice, those payments, those statuses, will also pull back over to Ressio because it's maintained that connection. So you could enter a bill into Ressio, push it over to QuickBooks, cut a check or make an ACH payment or credit card payment, and then the bill in Ressio will be marked as paid when that refreshes again. Customer invoice can be created in Ressio, sent out to the customer, and also pushed to QuickBooks. It could be paid through QuickBooks. Maybe you receive a check in that instance, and that payment record will pull back to Ressio as well. One thing I do like to highlight here is that Ressio does have a payments partner. So if you want to create invoices in Ressio, send them out to your customer, receive payment through our payments partner, we accept credit card and ACH. We've got really good turnarounds on those, and it's a great new partner that we're working with. So we're no longer working with Stripe, where there was all sorts of fun with turnaround times, things like that. But we're working with a new partner that we really like. Nice thing is that it will mark those as paid in both systems. It records that record and it goes to whatever bank account you want it to. We don't hold on to that, but that will still mark both systems as paid. If you don't want to use our payment system, or if you take a check or cash or Chuck E. Cheese gift cards or whatever it might be for your payment method, applying that payment in QuickBooks will still pull that over to the Ressio copy of the invoice. Invoice currently, as it stands today, customer invoices that are created in QuickBooks do not sync back over to Ressio. Customer invoices specifically need to start in Ressio in order to be in Ressio. So just something I like to highlight here. Time and expenses can be created in QuickBooks, and as long as they're mapped up to the right project and right cost code, those will pull back over to Ressio. And you can still do a cost plus invoice from actuals, even if your actuals start in QuickBooks. So if you enter a bill for $1,000 in QuickBooks, sync that over to Ressio. You can still create a customer invoice from that bill. The attachments push and pull between the two systems as well, if you want to. So if you add an attachment to a Ressio bill or you add an attachment to a QuickBooks bill, those will pull and push between the two systems as well. All of those attachments can be included on your invoices if you want to, but it's nice because no matter where your time and your expenses originate, you can generate cost plus invoices off of those. If you're doing fixed price projects, it's just in there for job costing at that point. One thing that we didn't call out here that we'll update the slide on is vendor credits are a little bit of a unique situation. So if you are only using Ressio, we don't have a dedicated vendor credits module. So what you can do is just simply create a negative bill. You can create a bill with a negative dollar value that acts kind of as a vendor credit, and you can credit that back on an invoice if you need to. However, negative values cannot push over to QuickBooks. So like a negative bill, you can't have a negative bill in QuickBooks. It's not a concept that they enjoy. So if you are utilizing QuickBooks and you want to track vendor credits need to originate in QuickBooks, and those can be pulled right back over to Ressio, still act as kind of like that negative bill workflow. They're marked as vendor credits in like the budget screen and everything like that. So just something to be aware of there.
Okay, we did have one question from Christy about using Adaptive to build draws and then syncing to QuickBooks. So that goes back to your comment, Christy, if the invoices or draws originate in QuickBooks or in Adaptive, they will not pull into Ressio.
Yeah, so Christy, I think we're open to exploring the ability to pull invoice information back. It's just not as of today, and we're teaching as of today. What some of my adaptive builders do is they either create those same draws in Ressio because we can provide all of the supplemental information that would be required now that we have invoice bill attachments and all of those things, or if they prefer the adaptive system for that draw invoice, they would simply just recreate the invoice. It's very easy to do in Ressio with just like invoice from actuals, select the same bills, and they often attach a copy of that so it can be seen by their customers, since adaptive, to my understanding, does not have a client portal. So you can either create those in Ressio and they will sync back over to Adaptive, or if you prefer to create them in Adaptive, you would just need to manually recreate them in Ressio if you want that information to appear in Ressio at this time. Great question, though.
Okay. She had a follow-up. She said, doesn't that duplicate in QuickBooks Online? No, because you would turn off the push from Ressio to QuickBooks Online.
Yeah.
So if you are doing that workflow, you want to make sure that you're not pushing from Ressio into QuickBooks Online.
Exactly. Great call out, Melissa. Yeah, so you have the ability to turn off invoices pushing to QuickBooks, same as you can do for bills and time and vendor credits and things like that. That's part of the actual setup of settings, and I'll show that on my screen here in just a moment of like what the QuickBooks settings look like, but you can just toggle those on or off. Anonymous attendee, can customer invoices be generated in Ressio, flow to QBO, and be collected via QBO? 100%.
Yes.
That was the example with like, if you don't want to use our payment systems and you prefer QuickBooks, or if you receive a payment method that we don't accept, like Chuck E. Cheese gift cards, you can totally do that. It is not a problem at all. Really great question. I think the vendor names we'll talk about here in just a moment. Request to be able to add a new vendor from a PO or bills page. Great call out, Rachel. Yeah, we can definitely take that enhancement feedback of being able to create a vendor from the purchase order or bills page. Especially helpful if you, while creating a PO, realize, gosh, this vendor doesn't exist in my system. So really great call out there. I think we've all run into that a time or two, especially when we're working with a new subcontractor that maybe we've not worked with before. Nice thing is that some of the work we're doing with Mason, which we've talked about in previous webinars, is going to allow for more of these callouts and automations and not having to leave a page. Not something that exists today, but not in the not too distant future. I think you'd be able to say, hey, create a new vendor for me, and Mason could create that for you. So really great call out there. Awesome. I think we went over everything I can think of here for QuickBooks back and forth. And one thing I will say is that this does not have to be the same for every project. So I have some builders that I've worked with. I have a really great builder I work with out of Mississippi that they actually self-perform certain pieces of work. So they will, on occasion, they will turn off the bills toggle to not push those bills to QuickBooks because they just want to keep them in Ressio while the rest of their bills pull over. I have builders that I work with that do a certain number of like spec projects where they want to create the invoices as a reminder to themselves or actually to do like bank draws, and they won't sync those particular invoices over to QuickBooks. They just keep them internal in Ressio. So there are many exceptions to the rule. So don't feel like you set your QuickBooks settings once for your entire company and you're locked into that forever. Yeah. Awesome. I think we can move on to the next slide here. So reporting in Ressio, and this is one where I'm actually going to take over control here, and I'm actually going to go to the reports screen on my account, if that's okay, Marie. So, and I do this because we've been building so many reports, and by we I mean me and my wonderful team of engineers, mostly them. We've been building a lot of really great reports here. So in addition to the great reporting that you can get project by project from the budget table here, and here's that right click and export just so everyone can see it in action. CSV and Excel exports here. We have this whole relatively new section of Ressio called reports. And so reports are not just financial reports. There are all sorts of different reports that are available. One of the things that we're working on right now is adding additional financial reports. We're going to be working on adding dashboards. And in the not too distant future, we're also going to be adding the ability for builders to generate their own reports as well, not just the stock ones that we have here. So lots of cool stuff coming. But this is an area of Ressio that we're going to continue to expand upon. A couple of those great examples I have here. So for example, I've got my estimated versus forecasted versus actual hours report. That's a really great kind of project management / financials overlap there. We try to put great descriptions of like what each of the reports are in them. This one, for example, is, and it's going to take a second here, this one is specifically looking at all of the cost codes across your projects. You can filter down by project name or by cost code. The estimated hours are specifically looking at anything in the estimate that's labeled as labor type, or using like hours or hour as the unit type. So it's actually looking for specific things. Actual hours come from your approved time clock entries, and forecasted hours come from approved and draft time clock entries. And so these reports update live as you're making those changes. These can all be downloaded as well if you'd like to for kind of additional filtering and subtotaling and things like that. But this is just one of many of the great reports we have. Another one that I really like is let me see if I can find it here. It is the list of applied actuals in budgets. Is that the one I want to pull up here? I think so. Yep. So this one actually shows me, and my columns here are a little squished, so I'll pull these over. This actually shows me all of the applied actuals, whether they are from Ressio or from QuickBooks. Any applied actuals that show up in budgets, I can see them all here grouped by cost code. I can filter down by project name, by vendor or employee, by cost code, by status as well, by QuickBooks status even. So lots of great filters that can be put into place here. But this allows me to see all of my applied actuals from all of my budgets. I can filter down to just show the ones that are approved or paid or not paid. So really great kind of cross project, or you can filter down to single project reporting here. It also includes things like the descriptions, whether it's excluded from invoicing, the actual project name, internal notes if they exist as well. So a lot of data there. And again, these can be exported pretty easily. So a lot of great information here. All sorts of reports. One thing I will say is if you're feeling like we're missing a report, please let us know. We're happy to continue to build those. We've got lots of great project management reports in here as well. One that I built that I think is deceptively powerful is actually the QuickBooks Connection report. This will actually just show you across all of your projects which Ressio project is connected to which QuickBooks project and customer, its status and its type. I don't have a lot here in this account, but I can see Crowley's Home is connected to the Not Synced project. That's actually the name of the project, and it's a project type. So this is just really great if you are wondering why a specific project isn't available on your QuickBooks drop-down menu. just run this report real quick and see if maybe it was an old archive project or you connected it to the wrong project. So these are the kind of reports that we try to build for our builders. There's a realistic named one. So it's just a really great report. Your account probably won't have as many as we do, and you can also filter out the archived ones if you want to as well. You can sort by connection status, things like that as well. So really great way to just kind of see if your QuickBooks projects are connected just all on one page. Yeah, so lots of great reports here. Melissa, any kind of things on reports that you've played around with so far, or are you doing most of your reporting through QuickBooks? Because of course you always have access to your QuickBooks reporting as well.
For all of my higher level reporting, I do a lot of like WIP reports and stuff outside of even QuickBooks. So I'm super excited about the evolution of reports in Ressio to have that WIP because I know that's in the plan.
Yep,
So I'm
100% in the
really looking
plan.
forward to that.
And I think we're going to build kind of a standard generic WIP report for builders to start. And, if there's variations on there, because like you said, everybody has like a slightly different version of WIP reports, things like that. These are also things that are going to be brought to more like visual dashboards as well. And that's one of the great things that we're working on too. I see a couple other questions here that I want to get into while we're chatting. So, for Cost Plus, it'd be great if the budget had a column for bills and expenses that have not yet been invoiced to the client. Totally understand, Andrew. I think that specific all actuals report would be a great way to get that information because you can filter down to just the ones that haven't been invoiced for, things like that as well. But always, happy to take that feedback for further enhancements. I see from Ikaika, is there a plan for clients to have the ability to view the estimate page? It's not something that we've done in the past, and to be completely honest, at the other softwares I've worked for, sharing the estimate just wasn't something they really had either. What I would recommend probably for the time being is you have the ability from the estimate of a project to, and I'll use my webinar prep project here, you do have the ability to download this to an Excel file or export it to a different file type if you prefer to. In data here, you can copy out or view. So you do have the ability to download a copy of this to share with the client. You could simply download it and add it to the files section, but not a plan at this time to share the estimate page with customers, since it does have a lot of information that not every builder is going to be comfortable sharing with their customers. That's often why we have builders share the budget page, the specifications page, things like that as well, but really good for future feedback. In the applied actuals report, a way to see the amounts not yet invoiced to the client by project. We often need to look ahead and see where the estimate is. I believe it's going to show all of your actuals. I think there's an invoice summary report as well. And if you feel like it's missing, Andrew, please let us know, and we're happy to start building more of those reports for you. But I would take a look at the reports we have so far, and if it feels like it's missing, just let us know. Reach out in the community. That's a great place to engage with us for those requests.
Zach, there's also in the KB article in the Help Center, there is a direct link that you can click and fill out a form to suggest a report that you might be missing. So
Awesome. Wasn't aware of that one. So
yeah.
good call, Marie. Thank you so much. Do reports simply give you data, or can you make changes or updates in the report? So you can add filters in, but these are standardized reports. So it pulls a predetermined set of information. You can filter down to hide certain information, but there's not currently, Christy, the ability to like add custom columns or things like that. That's kind of what we're getting towards in the future with the custom report building capabilities of like AI generated reports or user built reports. We're kind of proving the data cleanliness at this time, and a lot of builders like with these tools. So these tools often use things like SQL or like data query tools. So we're kind of cleaning up that portion of things. This is a great place that AI can come in and assist with generating these things because it can make assumptions. So not today, but definitely in the future. However, you could always export these reports into Excel if you want to do like certain subtotals or groupings that just aren't in that report as of today. All of these can be downloaded and exported into Excel. Awesome. Marie, I will give you back control to share screen if we want to go back to kind of the last tips. I know we have a tips page there as well.
We do. So give me a moment. There we go. Tips and best practices. So I'm I don't know who wants to do it. I mean, maybe Melissa, this is maybe a good time for you to step in, especially since you see all different types of companies, different types
Sure.
of, people.
Okay, so the first tip there, definitely make sure that you're syncing before month end. We don't want to get right to the end of the month and realize that we have a data problem that's been stacking up. Most of my builders are making sure that they're synced at least weekly. Usually a consistent day of the week that they're going and looking at their budgets. Definitely a good time to sync everything. Make sure that if you are integrated with QuickBooks Online, that you're seeing your same totals on your applied actuals as you have in QuickBooks. That's honestly the easiest way to see if you have any sync issues. And if you do see a sync issue, then go to that report that Zach mentioned, figure out maybe there's a connection that got broken. Use that as your way to troubleshoot that. Second tip, cost codes are your source of truth. So every bill, PO, time entry should be linked to a cost code. That's your way of bringing that data between the two systems. So if that information isn't there, then you're obviously not going to be able to pull that. So that's another thing to look at when you're looking at your applied actuals. When you're in QuickBooks, if you have numbers that aren't linking, check to make sure that that has a cost code. 9 times out of 10, it's either the project isn't listed there, assuming your connections are good, either the project isn't listed on that code or that expense, or you don't have a cost code assigned, and that's why it's not syncing over. So those are the kind of 3 things to look at there. We link one vendor in Ressio to one vendor in QuickBooks Online, so you can't do a 2-for-1. So ideally, you would have your vendor names matching identically. Sometimes we have situations where we have like Ferguson in one and then Ferguson Inc. in the other. As long as those are mapped and you don't have any additional names, and there's not consistently different names in different places, as long as they're mapped directly in your vendor list, you're good to go there. I think we did have a question on that. Marie may have answered it in the chat earlier.
Yeah, it was, they're worried about duplicates.
Yeah. So as long as you're consistent in one system and consistent in the other, and you've mapped those 2 names, you're good. But if there's variation in Ressio and variation in QuickBooks, and there's not a mapping connection, then you're going to have issues.
I think same goes for like cost codes and products and services. I encourage builders to use the same naming conventions. These are also things that like cost codes and vendors and employees as well. If you're linking employees for time off, this is a one-time thing. So it's not like you're having to go back and resync these or reconnect these all the time. It's generally a one-time mapping unless you add some new vendors or add some new cost codes or add some new employees. And then again, it's just that one time and you're good moving forward. It's not like you're unconnecting and reconnecting things a bunch.
Ideally, you'd be consistent and it would be a one-time thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Unless you completely change your cost code structure or move to a different state to build and all your vendors are different, then hey, totally get it.
Well, and like I've had situations with clients where they're going through and cleaning up their vendor list. They realize that they had like 2 Fergusons in QuickBooks, but only 1 in Ressio. So then they're merging those and then making sure they map the final version. So they're
actually, that's a good call out as well. For vendors specifically, you only need to link Ressio vendors to QuickBooks vendors if you plan to enter bills and expenses into Ressio and sync them to QuickBooks. If you're planning to put all of your expenses into QuickBooks and simply just pull those back into Ressio, you don't need to map your vendors. You can if you want to, totally fine, but it's not required because that information is showing up in the actual like budget bill line item. From the Ressio side, it's ensuring that when we create a bill, it shows up somewhere in QuickBooks.
Right. All right. Tip 4, review the budget weekly. That goes back to what we were saying earlier. In addition to making sure that everything is syncing on a monthly basis, we want to make sure that we're looking at our budget to actuals on a weekly basis. If you do have variances in your budget, underruns, overruns, we want to make sure that we're looking at those on a regular basis so that we can catch if there's change orders that need to be issued, if maybe costs were inadvertently assigned to the wrong project. We want to catch those consistently. to keep our budgets and actuals clean. Tip 5, use change orders. Please, 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 please use change orders. If you have project costs that are changing for whatever reason, capture that as a change order. Do not go into the budget. Do not edit it. Do not unlock it and relock it. Like, just don't do it. You don't have to. The change orders are so easy to use in Ressio. Use them. Get them approved. Make sure that your customers understand if there is a change in the project cost. It is so much easier to tell them as the costs are changing than it is at the end of the job, especially if the costs are going up.
Yeah,
like you want them on board.
Yeah, I always harped with my builders when coaching that change orders are equally important in a fixed price and a cost plus job, but for very drastically different reasons. In a fixed price project, if you don't do the change order, you're not getting paid for it because you're doing progress invoicing off of your estimate and then invoicing from changes. So if you want to very kindly give your customer a brand new outdoor kitchen that they added on for free, don't do the change order, go for it. But if you want to not eat that cost, do the change order. With cost plus projects, while you're not directly invoicing your customers off of those change orders, and the same goes for selections as well, it tells the narrative. It helps you explain to your customer, because I know every builder has dealt with this, of the customer who the budget starts at $800,000 and they're like, nope, we are 100% going to stick to that $800,000 budget. And not 2 months later, the budget is now $1.2 million because of selections and change orders. So tracking those gets the approval and the sign up from your customer and updates that revised and approved price before the bills start showing up.
Yes. Very important on both fronts, for sure. Good call outs. All right. Our tip 6, archive completed projects. So final billing, archive it in Ressio. Make sure that you've done your full project closeout. If you've got head statements to put in journal entries on the QuickBooks side, do all that, then get that project archived so you can keep your project list clean. It's also less visual clutter. I'm a visual clutter person. So if I'm going into Ressio looking at a bunch of projects and some of those are closed out, it's already brain fatigue on that. Makes it way easier to just go ahead and get that archived, get it out of your brain so you can focus on the projects that you actually need to look at.
Yeah.
And then number 7, time and bills. We definitely recommend using Ressio as your entry point for time and bills. It keeps all of the data available in Ressio for your reports. It still flows over into QuickBooks if you need it for accounting purposes, you have it. But the reporting functions that we're building out on the Ressio side make it way better that you have that data in there ready to go.
Yeah, we just have access to more information.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The nice thing is we do have a automated receipt extraction tool, or bills and receipt extraction tool. So, and you can toggle that off. So if you prefer to do manual entry when you add in your bill attachments, things like that, you can toggle that off. But it's nice because you can go to the budget page or go to the bills page, create a new bill, plop the attachment in there, whether it's a PDF, a JPEG, a PNG, any extractable file type like that. It'll scan it, pre-fill the information. It does a great job of linking the customer and the vendor and the unit line, like the line items and the dollar values. It does a great job of linking all those. The only thing you're generally responsible for is verification and adding cost codes. And I think we'd love to get to a point where you don't even have to think about cost codes in the future. There are ways to do that. That we're thinking about. But it's nice because it's a full extraction. You can still edit and modify and then move it right from draft onto ready for approval and carry all that same great information and the attachments over to QuickBooks on approval and onto the invoices you generate as well, especially if you like to provide like supplemental information of like, hey, here's my invoice broken down by line and here's all of the bills I received as well. You can totally do that.
Yeah, and that's great on the cost plus side. One tip on receipts that I've noticed works really well. If you've got a receipt that doesn't necessarily say what project it is, what cost code it is, if you just put that at the top, like just literally write it in relatively neatly, it helps the extraction tool get that assigned to the right spot.
Yeah, and if it's a new vendor, make sure the vendor exists in there because it won't extract the vendor. If it doesn't know the vendor's name, it's not going to add a new vendor for you there because that could cause some crazy issues, but it does a really good job about that.
I actually like that it doesn't automatically create it because if there is a vendor in there
Slight
that's similar,
discrepancies. Yeah.
yeah, then we don't have
Ferguson
weird
versus
duplicates.
Ferguson Inc. versus Ferguson
Right.
HVAC. Yeah.
Like it. Let's
There
see.
was a
Rachel.
Rachel,
yeah.
Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Currently, cost codes won't automatically map in. So line item information, unit cost, things like that. So currently, the cost codes are still on you all to add in before you save and add
Mhm.
those in. But I think we'll look at getting those extracted in the future. It's just not an area that we extract automatically at this time.
I'm just noticing the time, so let me
Question.
questions. This is a good time. Last chance, oops, to go back. And if you guys have any last minute questions, please pop them in. Um, that'd be great.
Feel like
Well
we've
done.
answered a good number throughout.
But no, everyone's been answering, adding their questions, which is actually makes it a lot easier and smoother.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
Yeah, if they all end up at the end, you go back.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, if anyone wants to add them in, they can still, but here's Melissa's information.
Yep.
I'll keep that up there. But yeah, any last minute questions? And as you guys are reading how to get in touch with Melissa, um, there will be a survey as soon as I end this. There will be a survey. So please, please, please add in your comments. We love to get your feedback. We do these because of you all. So if you have a specific topic you want us to go over in the future, we want to hear about it. So we really appreciate y'all. And Melissa's information is also on our website under the partners tab. So if you couldn't stay, you can always get this. Ooh.
Yeah, Melissa's great. We've been working together on and off for, gosh, about 6 years now when I started at my last company. So Melissa's great.
Oh, this is a good. What about dropping a credit receipt into the AI? Can it pull that it's a credit or not a debit?
So for like a vendor credit, so that would be something you would need to enter into QuickBooks because we're not, if you're utilizing QuickBooks as part of this, we're not able to push those negatives over from Ressio to QuickBooks. So for vendor, like credits specifically, best practice would be to enter those into QuickBooks because we're just not able to push those over. If you're only using Ressio, I honestly have not attempted a credit extraction. So I would test it, and if it does a good job, awesome. At worst, it'll probably like put all your information in as a positive, and you can simply change the quantity or the unit cost to a negative. But if you are pushing that over to QuickBooks, yeah, it should track everything on the Ressio side, Zachary. So if you're not pushing these over to
Yeah.
QuickBooks and you're simply just using Ressio for this, you can track the negatives as well. It just comes in as a negative bill. So worst case scenario, you run the extraction, it shows up as a positive, and you simply flip the quantity or unit to a negative, and you're good to go there. Because in Ressio, a vendor credit is just a negative bill.
Lots of questions today. I love it.
Yeah, love
Yeah,
it. Fantastic.
it was very active.
Yeah, and keep adding them as I go over this. Our next CS office hour will be on time clock. It'll actually be a lunchtime. It'll be like a lunch and learn. So please, I hope everyone can join. You can find all of our events under the events page in the community forum. So if you are not part of the community forum, I'm happy to help you join the community forum or ask your CS coach about that. Also, yeah, under the events page, there's always a registration link. There will also be a recording of past events. So if you miss the event, you can go there. You can also go to our YouTube channel and see this recording if you want to share it with your team members or view it again. I'm trying to think what else. And if there's any other questions about anything, you can always reach out to your CS coach or CS coach manager. So please use those resources and please fill out the survey. There will be an email going out for those of you that had to drop early to fill out the survey. Is there anything else? Last call for questions. Anything you want to add, Melissa or Zach? Thank you. Oh, I first want to say thank you to Melissa for doing this. We really appreciate you
Yes.
Yeah, of
taking the
course.
time to do this for us.
Yeah. We get to talk to
I
you all
love
the time,
these.
but it's great for our builders to hear from you as well.
Well, yeah, and so that was the only thing I was going to add. If there's any financial topics, anything that y'all want covered on webinars, I'm happy to participate with the Ressio team as much as we need to make sure that the community is taken care of on the financial management side. There's a lot of stuff like we just did surface level today
Mm-hmm.
on what we're doing, dropped a few nuggets, but there's a lot involved in the financial management structure of building companies, and I'm happy to do more in depth on any specific areas that you're struggling with. And I mean, we could even do it like lunch and learn type, like
Yeah.
hands-on. Okay, now get into your Ressio account and we're gonna like set it up however we need to do it to make sure that we're covered. I know the CS team does a lot of really good intensive sessions with builders getting stuff set up, but sometimes people just, oh, I'm not going to schedule with my CS coach, but I'll attend a webinar, right? So
Yeah.
just
Yep.
however the structure works out for you.
Yeah. And then maybe we can do one down the road that's a little bit more in depth, a little above the one-on-one and
Yeah.
Get into
Like
that.
it.
But I'm gonna call it because I don't see any other questions.
Like it.
Thank you so much, Zach. Thank you so much, Melissa. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much for all of you that joined. Please fill out the survey. I appreciate it.
Yes.
All right. Bye,
Have a
Bye,
good
everyone.
y'all.
one. Bye.